Oh, good, good, good. Because I planned for 25 minutes, but I don't know if I could do 30, but we'll see.
Well, now you're 11 seconds into it.
I'm 11 seconds into it. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Hang on here. Let's see something here. 'Cause I tend to, I'll look at this clock before I do that one. Just a nervous thing. Well, listen, I'm Bob, an alcoholic.
Hey, Bob.
My AA birthday is February 14th of 1983. Recently, this means I celebrated 39 years last month, thanks to the program. A little bit about, before I get into what it was like, I want to spend a few minutes sharing the love that I walked into 39 years ago when I got clean at the 23rd and Cherry Fellowship Hall. And the reason why I want to share a little bit about that is because it's critical. It was critical. It was critical for me to walk into so much love, and from the beginning, I must kind of might back in this backwards, but being as afraid as I was when I got clean, it was good to come into meetings and I would hear people talking about how they were solving their problems without getting drunk. And I got to tell you, I was like a sponge, you know what I mean? Because I didn't know what to do with myself, and so I just want to take a few minutes. I have most of the people that I got sober with, by the very nature of my age when I got sober, probably a third of them have passed on sober. They died sober. And the reason why it's critically important for me to talk about that is because really I'm not only carrying my message, I'm carrying their message. You see, they gave this program to me, and many of them I watched. It's interesting. Probably about 5 or 6 of them developed terminal illness, and so they knew they were on their way out. And the reason why I know I have a way out, regardless to the decisions I make, i.e., I could leave here right now, go to now I'm old enough, I can go to a local bar, and get drunk. You know what I mean? My drinking was in house parties because my whole drinking and using career was illegal because I was too young. But an alcoholic will find a way to get drunk. You know that. And so these members before me, they inspired me because many of them, they were carrying their message to the last day, to their last breath. The only reason why they stopped carrying the message is because they couldn't do it anymore. The disease, most of them, cancer got them. The disease had got them into such a point where they couldn't be present to carry the message. They were bedridden, and then people would come to them and give them the message. You understand me? That's the power of Alcoholics Anonymous. Let me be clear about that. Before I move on, I'm going to share the value. If you're newer to the program, and I don't know if I can get through this without getting emotional, but here's the deal. I lost my father about 4 years ago, and I kid you not, we're in the hospital, and they're telling him this is the 4th cancer. He survived the first 3. And he died clean with 37 and a half years of sobriety, by the way. But let me tell you this about the magic of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're new, you've been here for a while, I'm singing to the choir. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. So they told him, they said, this one's going to kill you. And here's his response. I really miss my friends in Alcoholics Anonymous. This cancer is going to kill you. His response was, I miss my friends in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's some love that exists in Alcoholics Anonymous that I think is very difficult to find anywhere else. So I just wanted to get that out up front before I go into my story, because it's the people who walked before me who gave me this program that's enabled me to live the life that I have today. It's just the way it is. So now, if I can pull myself together after I got emotional, you know what I mean? But that's what it was. And one of the members of Cherry Fellowship Hall, who actually helped us secure the building we've been in for over 30 years, was named Juanita. And she carried the message. She had cancer. And I can remember her still getting the meetings and pounding on tables, talking about you don't have to drink no matter what. That's the power of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're new to the program, I might not have a better message to give you. I don't think you're going to find that in the bar. I don't think you're going to find that in any other place where you can get mood altering chemicals. I don't believe you're going to follow. You're not going to. I don't believe you'll find that anywhere else. So my story is like this. My drinking and other drug use. I'm respectful of AA, but it'd be impossible for me to share without letting you know that I use some other mind-altering chemicals. I use them the same way I drank alcohol, alcoholically. So somewhere between the ages of 7 and 9, as best I can remember, I was hanging out with some older folks, older ladies and men. I was like 7 to 9, somewhere hanging out in the local mini park in the Central District of Seattle, and they were drinking, and they were encouraging me to drink, and I fought it off for a while, but it looked like they were, they were doing it. So eventually I took that drink is my whole point. And I got to tell you, from my first drink, you know what I mean? It did something for me. We in Alcoholics Anonymous, those of you veterans in AA, that we drink for the effect. It's in our literature. And it was real clear to me then that I was coming back, because it did something for me. It did something for me. It took me away from all of the internal stress that I had in my life already. You know what I mean? And it was fabulous. It gave me the courage I needed. I could say things that I thought I would never be able to say. We call that liquid courage in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm telling you, it was on. And I was sitting here thinking in preparation for sharing in this meeting, how is it that I managed to stay drunk? It's not like, that after that first drink, I was able to get drunk every day. But after that first drink, I knew I was going to get drunk, because it did it for me. It took care of all of that. In AA, we call it life on life's terms. I didn't have to worry about life on life's terms as long as I could get drunk. Who has time for at that time dealing with the stress of school books, the stress of some things that were happening in my home. And I'm trying to figure out how to share that message and be respectful of the father that I lost, who had a great second life. But when I first got clean, he told me I might need to clean house around some things that I saw. That's how much of a man he was, right? And when it was time for me to talk to him about some of those things, he was right there for me, right? So it's the second half that I paid the most attention to. He had a lot of love in his heart. He cared for a lot of people. And when we lost him, so many people talked about how he had impacted their lives. Right? And but the reality of it is, I had already felt less than before I took that first drink. That's what made it so important. And I already felt like I couldn't cope with life. And that alcohol handled that in a big way. And so as the story goes, I made sure that I hung out with older people. And then as I got to be around 12 or 13 years old, you know what I mean? There were house parties. So all of my drinking was within house parties. This men's group I've been going to the last 6 months, which is where I met Noah. When I was asked to chair, I had to share with them that I'm respectful of Alcoholics Anonymous, but because I was young, all of my drinking occurred either in at house parties or at drug houses. Because when you're illegal, you're stuck, you know? so, so they seem to be pretty cool with that because I didn't have no other way in order for you to get to know me than to understand my story. You know, my story is I drank a lot. I drank at house parties. And when we couldn't get it, then I thought about it earlier. We would hang out, and there used to be hoagies, these hoagie stores. They were like 7-Eleven stores. I don't know if you remember them. But here's the deal. Yeah, deli, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Don R. I always call him by his last name, but since I'm on this little recorder deal, I better be careful and practice, you know, support anonymity, you know. But the reality of it is, man, I drank a lot, and we always had somebody's brother, somebody's sister, or something that was old enough to buy alcohol for us. And when we couldn't do it, then I remember hanging out at these delis and these 7-Elevens, and we would be begging people to buy some liquor for us because we were too young. But when you're an alcoholic and you need to drink, you find a way to drink. And we found a way to drink. I had no problem staying drunk, ever. And on the other illegal stuff, you know, it was even easier to get hold of that. You know, so I can clearly remember some of the stories. One of my favorite ones is I was 16 years old, and managed to get my driver's license, and I blacked out and got pulled over in Georgetown. And when I come to, I'm driving down the middle of the street, and these cops pulled me over. You know, and as I recall, I didn't have my all of my ID with me. You know, and I hit them hard. You know, I mean, I hit them hard. I went into the I'm sorry, I'm alcoholic. I was drinking too much. You know, I didn't say I was alcoholic, but I went into the crying thing. You know what I mean? Snot crying everywhere. You know what I mean? I put on that. I'm gonna smooth you. You know, I'm gonna see what shoot the best shot to see if I can get away from this. You know, if I can get away. And sure enough, they're behind the car, and I got one of them feeling sorry for me. The one who's feeling sorry for me, he said, "Yeah, I've had nights like he's had, though." You know, and I cried some more, drunk as hell. You know, you come out of that blackout. I don't even know how I ended up in Georgetown, but I'm in Georgetown. You know, and at that time, it wasn't the best place to be for anybody. But if you were of color, you really shouldn't be getting pulled over in Georgetown because they had something for you. You know what I mean? At that time. Now, I'm respectful of the law. My sister-in-law is a retired police officer, just to let you know. I support the police, you know. But the reality of it is, you know, I cried my way out of that stuff, man. I mean, oh my God, it was, you know. But you know, I have lots of stories like that where you freaking, you know your butt's in trouble, and you go to cry your way out of it. You know, on the girlfriend tip, most people, you know, date. And then they date, and then they practice going out, and then after you go out together for a while, then you ask them, would you marry me? Well, look, I couldn't get to the point of asking somebody to marry me because I was blowing them relationships up. What you mean? Why are you mad at me because I didn't show up because I got drunk? That's, you know, don't be mad at me because I got drunk. And, you know, young lady's like, I'm tired of this. I'm not putting up with this anymore. Every time you say you're going to come over, if I have a drink first, they don't see me. I can't get to your house and I'm already drunk. And here's the other piece of it before I go on too far. That I'm going to say, even though I'm being recorded, all right, I'm not too concerned about it. But here's the thing. What happens when you're out here and you're dating and you don't have too much to drink and it doesn't work, you know? I mean, you talk about embarrassing. I'm a young man, you know what I mean? I'm not even 18 yet, and I'm already not able to function when it comes time to function. I'll just leave it at that. Everybody wants to talk about how powerful alcohol is. How about when you can't perform because you're too drunk? Oh my God, is that embarrassing? I mean, it is so humbling even at this podium to talk about that. But if you're a real alcoholic, you know, you might relate to that part of my story, man. It really Yeah, really, it's really quite crippling, literally speaking. But, oh my God, oh my God, and then you talk about high school, man. Look, most people, you graduate from high school, you know what I mean, and then you get into trade school, you go to college. Let me tell you something. I almost didn't graduate from high school behind drinking. You know what I mean? Most people get a diploma and then they go to work and then they start drinking and then the drinking creates a problem. When you start drinking young, here's what happens. The prerequisites to getting a decent job, you kill that first. So my, you know, so I managed to get through high school. I tell you, I was challenged on a course. I was failing. I was not going to graduate because I'm getting drunk. I don't have time to be in the classroom. I don't have time to be studying. I need to get drunk and stay drunk because I don't like society, and I'm physiologically addicted. In our literature, we talk about the phenomenon of craving. It's in. I got to drink. You mess around, you get up the next morning, you're shaking, you're feeling bad. The first thing I'm thinking about, I need another drink. It's called alcoholism. You see, and I'm glad as the lashes of alcoholism and John Barleycorn, I could clearly see the fact that I was failing in high school. I was already failing in relationships, that it was essentially the same as people who have divorces and people who get fired. I had the prerequisites and failing in those. So I never had to worry about, and buying a house. My whole logic when I was drinking behind buying a house was that alcohol would say, hey, don't worry about it. Don't even put any effort into it. Don't worry about it. It's just going to happen. So, it's just illogical. The whole thing was illogical, but that's alcoholism for me and drug addiction. I'm sticking to the alcohol side to be respectful of Alcoholics Anonymous, but be clear. I'll share this on the other side of it, and then I'll get into how I bottomed out, what the recovery process has been like for me. In a general way, the other side of it was paranoia. So if I wasn't having blackouts, and then I was paranoid. And so as I stand here today, the reason why I choose not to drink or use, I don't want those blackouts in my life, and I don't want paranoia. I don't want to have to be in some alcohol drug information school. That was part of my story. Another time where I got busted that time. Police pulled up on Day Street. Day Street's real nice. You park there and you can oversee Lake Washington and all that. We're getting drunk. We are getting drunk. Police pulled up behind us, waited until they were ready, turned on the lights, and then walked up to the car because we're getting drunk. We don't even know the police are behind us. And that one did end up in a citation, and I had to go to some school. My dad, bless his heart, I'm sure he was thinking, I done got sober. Now I got a son who's in trouble. And all he could say was, if you keep your nose clean from now on, you'll be all right. He knew he couldn't do anything for me. He knew I was an alcoholic. He knew I was in trouble. He never lectured me. He didn't say any of that. But what I knew when the time was right, when I bottomed out, I had watched him get clean, and I had watched the house calm down. And I can remember seeing the 12 by 12 on the nightstand. You're talking about some powerful stuff. So that's qualifies me. We got to share what it was like. So you hear I clearly qualify. Now, on my first day of sobriety, I tell you, I was in college, and I was like 3 lives. I'm trying to go to college, and I'm drinking. You know what I mean? I'm trying to hold a part-time job. And part-time job already got backup for me because they knew I'm calling in sick if you're drunk. Well, some alcoholics, qualify, were more functional. They actually, matter of fact, a lot of them I got sober with were getting ready to retire or had retired. They were functional enough, just as alcoholic as I am, but they were functional enough to go to work. I couldn't do those things. I couldn't go to work regularly. I couldn't go to school regularly. I couldn't do any of those things. So I had to get clean in order to do those things. So February 14th of 1983, I had sworn off drinking many times, probably like most of you, and was drunk, generally speaking, the same day. I didn't know I was going to get sober. I was in a college classroom. It's February 14th. I was angry, like a typical alcoholic. Why do I have to go to college? Because it's Valentine's Day. Why in hell isn't this a holiday? Hell, why don't I even got to go to work? You know what I mean? Afterwards, really, I was really angry about it. And I couldn't think straight. And there was an exam and I couldn't think straight. And I want to be clear, I edited some of my experience, but the nightlife was terrible. And I was in some pretty dangerous places as a result of drinking illegally. And it was very dangerous. And I'm quite certain there are many occasions I could have lost my life. I'll just leave it at that. But in case somebody hears this message, I think I'm responsible to let that person know that I was living in a very dangerous situation. Because if you hear this, they hear this recording, they need to know there's a way out. You don't have to be in those environments. And most of it is getting clean. When you get clean, you change the people that you're hanging with. You know what I mean? As a result of that, I didn't need those survival skills that I had ingrained in me that enabled me to get to AA. There's some survival skills that I had to have out there. Now I know how to talk about my feelings. You talk about your feelings in the environments that I was in, and you were really getting ready to get taken advantage of. You had to have the tough skin. You had to have the mask on. Can't let nobody get close to you because you don't want to get taken advantage of. All that crap. You know what I mean? So then, February 14th, 1983, I couldn't think straight. And this power greater than me, who I choose to call God, settled in on my heart and made it clearer to me than ever before. I don't think nothing's been made as explicitly clear to me as the message that I was an alcoholic and my life was out of control. I kid you not. That's what happened. Later on, I ended up in the hospital on the way to the ER. I come home, I cry out and ask my mom, I don't know what to do. I'm sure she was like, what? She's a retired science department head. She's a school teacher. You know what I mean? Here's her kid. He's out of control. He can't stop using. So she runs me to the ER and I leave the ER. She tells me apparently I got out of the car while I was still moving. I don't remember getting out of the car as I stand here right now. This was my first day of sobriety. I was still messed up. She said, you just got out of the car. I said, I got out of the car. Well, when I dip in detox, my body's aching all over the place. That's what happens when you get out of the car and it's still moving. This is an easier, softer way, my friends. And so I end up in treatment and whatnot. And part of my story is, look, now I'm running out of time already. Part of my story is this. They ended up running all these tests. And to make a long story short, there was 3 of us in the hospital. And all 3 of us had severe liver damage. How is it that you end up 18 years old, being a late stage chronic alcoholic, and you already got liver, you're on the verge of, at that time, this is 39 years ago. And they said even to show up on the test, you had to have a severe level of liver damage. And then my counselor said, but you know what? If you haven't made up your mind to stay sober, that's not going to matter. So what I'm grateful for is I was sick and tired of being sick and tired before I was admitted into the hospital. Because if I wouldn't have been sick and tired of being sick and tired, I would have finished the job. And one of the other 2 that were in trouble, I understand they didn't listen and they went out and drank and they died. So I'm about the living. The reason why I'm here is I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Don't want any more blackouts. I don't want people telling me what I did, not being able to defend myself. So this is an easier, softer way for Bob. So from that day to this day, I've been able to stay clean. I like to share a little bit with you about the house cleaning process. I think at 20 days sober, I did some house cleaning. It was okay. And I thawed out at about 11 months of sobriety. So things were much clearer at 11 months of sobriety. I tried my first relationship sober. I followed the treatment community, suggest stay out of relationships for the first year, whatever. I practiced that to the 11th month. I'm alcoholic. I have to be defiant a little bit. I jumped into that relationship and all my defects of character were presented to me. I can't trust her. She don't have anything to do with it. To really what it pointed to is I felt less than. If you feel less than everybody else, I couldn't trust anybody. And matter of fact, I come to realize I wasn't trusting my sponsor. I'm going to meetings, I'm carrying the message, people are clapping after I finish sharing, I'm getting in my car, and I feel like I'm going to lose my mind. 11 months sober, crying in my car, not understanding why people clap, but my insides are still dirty, is really what it comes down to. All of that, who you're resentful at, all of that is still drummed down in me, and I feel like I'm just going to explode. I'm in the doctor's office, I got stomach problems. They say, well, they run all these tests. You don't have, it's not an ulcer. You don't have gastritis. You don't run all this stuff. Said, but if something's really bothering you, to create these medical symptomologies. Well, you know what that is? That's called when you haven't shared your secret. That's what that is. I had done some work around some of the things I experienced as a kid, which no child should experience. I had to face that stuff. But I still was hiding the core stuff. I ended up in counseling, doing my fifth step. The person that did my fifth step recommended I get into counseling because I needed to learn how to heal. I didn't know how to heal from that stuff, as I get ready to close here, it's 26 minutes. The message I like to share is I'm so glad that Alcoholics Anonymous was there for me during that house cleaning period, because I was afraid to let that pain go, Well, who am I without that pain? You know what I mean? And furthermore, after I shared that pain, the counselor, I remember asking him, I said, I don't have to do this, this, and this, all them defects of character that I was using to run from me. And I used, eating was very comfortable. For a while, that those experiences, who I was resentful at, would come up, and I would eat instead of confronting and talking to somebody about those feelings. And then I was compulsive with sex, so I was running from myself through sex, and I was running through myself through excessive working out. But here's the problem: those things don't work long enough. I'm not drinking. Drinking didn't work. When you get right down to it, you got to come down sooner or later. You got to get through the withdrawal sooner or later, and I'm there. So I had to get into that stuff, and I had to clean some house so that I could learn how to have a normal life. And today I have a normal life. I have, through this program, the 7th step. The first step was the most important thing that I've done in my life, and the 7th step is the biggest thing that I've ever done, learning how to live without the old Bob. Learning how to live with recovery, Bob. Don't sabotage yourself, Bob, when you feel like sabotaging yourself by reacting in the old way, the alcoholic way. You don't have to act in the alcoholic way, Bob. It's okay to leave the alcoholic way alone. And Joe and Charlie in the Big Book Study, which I love, I'm a fan of Joe and Charlie in the Big Book Study, they say do the opposite. See what happens. You build your character. You start feeling better about yourself. It's weird in the beginning because I'm like, after I did Dr. and there's quite a few men in here know the secret that I'm talking about, because in open meetings, I generally share it. I just don't care. Another male might need to hear about that secret so that they can get free. Matter of fact, I've had a lot of men approach me over the years, sometimes with 10 years of sobriety, sometimes with 25 years of sobriety. And they say, Bob, I heard you talking about this in the meeting. I just need to sit down with somebody and share it with them. 25 years of sobriety, and they didn't feel comfortable with releasing that pain. So yeah, I'm going to continue to share that secret in open meetings because it's helping people heal. This God that's working through me is helping people heal. I called on that God to help me too on that first day of sobriety. Make no mistakes about it. I was confused. I didn't understand God. I knew there was a God. I was raised in churches all my life, but I was afraid of God. Well, the lashes of alcoholism resulted in this: God, please help me stop drinking. Got to carry that message, my friend, because I haven't had to drink since. There's something to be said about this power that's greater than Bob, And so I think I'm going to wrap up here. It's 29 minutes and 30 seconds or something. but I think I've done a pretty good job. I've done the very best of my ability. I said a prayer over there before I share, which is what I always do. And then my share is on point because I'm in alliance with a power greater than me, and I'm meeting the expectations of this power greater than me, because I had to get out of the way so that I could share what's meant to be shared. And I love working with men. I only work with one or two people at a time. I don't have the skill set to work with 10 men at 10. I just don't have it, you know. But I work with one or two men at a time, and then I help a lot of men. I'm not officially their sponsor, but I become a part of their network, and I'm able to help them heal too, you know. So I love working with men, and particularly after they've been sober for a while and they start having a victory over self, freedom from the bondage of self, because they find that they can live. They don't have to live through those defects of character. They can live in a recovery manner. It's powerful, man. So as I close, the freedom from the bondage of self. I have the freedom from the bondage of self through the steps, and I'm so grateful for that. You know, we have been able to raise a couple of boys. My sons are now 29 and 31 years old. I was able to be a loving dad because I cleaned house. The counselor said, "You're doing this in case you decide to have kids." And I'm thinking, I'm doing this because I'm tired of being in this pain. But he was right, because really I wouldn't have been able to love them. Here's the truth. I wouldn't have been able to love them in the way that they deserve to be loved if I hadn't done that work. In fact, I wouldn't have met my wife if I hadn't done that work, because my picker was not right. I would get people who were interested in chaos, and because I was still full of chaos. You know, it's hard to select. It's hard to pick somebody who's not about chaos if you're still about chaos. So thank God for the house cleaning as I'm living a new life. You know what I mean? And it's pretty good, man. It's pretty good thanks to the 10th step and all that. And now I mess around here and looked up, and I've been in for 31 years in the state retirement system. You know, another 4 or 5 years if I can keep doing this, and if I can stay healthy. You know, I could actually possibly sit down. Matter of fact, I know I'll be able to sit down. It'll be a choice. I can retire. But that's the program. I just finished sharing with you. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't go to school. And now you get sober, you apply yourself, you can do all them things. So I'm all out of time. And thanks so much for letting me share. And it's been a real pleasure.